Hello everyone, Archive was here and welcome back to the channel. So last time on the World Conqueror 4 series, we covered the September 2025 update. And in today's video, we will be covering the mid-November 2025 update. Now, let's get right into it. Dear World Conqueror 4 players, the next update of World Conqueror 4 is expected to be launched in mid-November. This update will bring new content as follows. New Army Group map, the final countdown. Army Group will be added. New defensive event, added the defensive event, Normandy landing. New legend, the legendary unit Desert Rat will be added. And new events, launch 2 nightmare difficulty military operations. Historical retrospection adjustment. Some historical retrospection levels have been added and 2 historical retrospection levels will appear on some days at the same time. Okay, so let's break this down one at a time, starting with the new army group map, the final countdown. I'm sure it is heavily inspired by the communities, one of the community mods, maps, or scenarios from other games such as Hearts of Iron 4. I am curious though what it means, what they meant by Final Countdown. Maybe this is a Pacific map. Who knows? Now moving on to the new defensive event, the Normandy landing. I'm sure a lot of you guys have been anticipating such event. Pretty sure we will be playing as the Germans here, or perhaps the Allies. I don't know. Now there's a new legend, a legendary unit, Desert Rat, and of course, obviously, this is going to be inspired by the legendary units from the African front on the World War II. And of course, the new events launch 2 nightmare difficulty military operations. Okay, so I guess some of you guys are not quite satisfied with having one, so World Conqueror 4 just said, hey, we're gonna bring in two. And of course, historical retrospection adjustments. So there have been new ones, and at the same time, there will be two instead of one historical retrospection mission to be appearing starting from mid-November and until the foreseeable future. Who knows? Maybe it will become three if it's heavily requested by the community. Now let's move on to the general training, which has been one of the most anticipated things that premium players have been waiting for. Training of Eisenhower and Zhukov. As stated in the message below, Eisenhower and Zhukov will become trainable, and their skill adjustment are as follows. So, let's start with Eisenhower. Commander of the Expeditionary Force. When the mobility of the commanded unit is higher than that of the enemy, it will deal plus XX% damage. When commanding the ship units, if there are enemy forces in the surrounding 3 grids, mobility plus 3. So, the first new skill is sort of kind of exclusive to the naval units. I don't know if it also works to the transport ships, but if does, that's kind of awesome. But if your mobility, let's say your mobility is 9 and the enemy's mobility is 8, you will deal more damage. In any enemy units within 3 grids surrounding you, you will have plus 1 mobility. So let's say your mobility is 9 or 10, and if there are enemies around you, it will become 10 or 11. And I'm sure that this is something that can be helpful in the normally landing defensive event. Unless we're playing the Germans. Now let's move on to the Operation Overlord, the second new skill of Eisenhower. When commanding troops to attack, there is an XX% probability that an inactive land force in the surrounding 2 grids will participate in the attack together, only once per turn. When commanding army or naval forces, invalidate some of enemy's buffs, slope armor, protection device, provocation in the surrounding 2 grids. In a second skill, if you command those troops, for example the land troops that you have, there is an XX% probability that an inactive land force in the surrounding 2 grids will participate in the attack together, only once per turn. So, let's say for example that you place Eisenhower in a cruiser, and you manage to place him in an area in which there are some of your land units. So if he fires, there's a probability that either a heavy tank or an artillery will pop off on the same enemy that you are targeting. And that is actually quite interesting if you think about it. What is kind of awesome is that when commanding army or naval forces, invalidate some of enemy's buffs, which are The slope armor protection device provocation is surrounding two grids, meaning that if the enemy elite units that or any other units that have these buffs and they are near two grids to Eisenhower, all of that will be gone. If you have Eisenhower, this is your time to shine. Now let's move on to Zhukov and his two new elite skills. First off, the Soviet Deep Battle. When commanding land forces, if an enemy is eliminated within 3 grids around him, your morale will increase and gain the breakout cluster status. Increases damage by X%, stackable up to XX%, lasts until the end of the turn. This is kind of an interesting buff. So if you destroy an enemy, if you are commanding, if you place Zhukov on a land unit such as, let's say rocket artillery or a super artillery or any elite artillery that you will place him as, your morale will increase and it will only increase if you defeated any enemy within 3 grids around him or surrounding him. And when that happens, you will gain the breakout cluster, which is a stackable increased damage. And maybe the stackable damage here will be up to 25% or 30%. The highest I could think of right now is it will be stackable until 50%, but that's a bit too high even for me. And lastly, firefighting captain. When commanding artillery units, mobility plus 3. After annihilating the enemy, there is an XX% probability that another attack will be triggered. For every 200 HP of the unit, the trigger probability increases by an additional XX%. What's interesting is that if you place an artillery unit, which obviously is obviously an artillery unit, base general, your mobility will increase by 3. And of course, the chances of you attacking again, there's a probability of it. And of course, the probability increases for every 200 HP of the unit. Now, I'm pretty sure that this means your unit, not the enemy's. The trigger probability increases by an additional XX%. Maybe the probability trigger or the percentage of that maybe somewhere in 10%, 15%, 20%. But if that's the case, that is actually kind of awesome. So again, for those who have bought Zhukov at the shop, this is also your time to shine. The other optimization will not be listed in details here. If you have more suggestions or feedback, feel free to tell us in the comment section. Thank you for your support. Sincerely, World Corner for development team. Again, this kind of update leans more to the premium players. And honestly, I think us free-to-play players have been given enough to the point that it's time for the premium players to have their time to shine. And that is it for today's video. So thank you guys for watching. If you're loving this series so far, then please don't forget to leave a like, comment down below, subscribe, and click the bell button to wish good thing in my channel. So this has been Voss, Archive Voss, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.